AP Stats, what's going on? We're about ready to get into our podcast here. Y'all are actually coming in to this building here in just a second. But I just wanted you to know we're going to podcast today's lesson. We've got a lot going on. We're finishing up 4.1B and 4.1C. So let's get it on. Let's do it. I'm excited about tonight.
Oh yeah, I had a dream last night that you and Mr. Washington and Mr. Blackwood were the only people that came though. It was so sad.
That is sad, but hey, at least you had someone.
Exactly.
That is kind of a nightmare.
But then you went out and told everybody to come, and then they came on.
I did in the dream?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Remind me to say something. Well, I will. We're having a prayer request today, and so that'll be easy to pray for. Remember that.
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I really am.
I'm very excited. So.
I'm sure it's a weird feeling. You get nervous, and then once you start, it's.
Yeah.
So. Hello. What's up, Michael? Hello. Y'all two are the first ones. Yeah, I would imagine it's kind of like speaking in front of someone. Once you begin, it's like, okay, we're good now.
Yeah.
How long is it?
45 minutes.
Which, that's abnormal, because normally some of these are like
normally
really
it's
long.
but it's for competition, so it has to be like under 4 hours.
Have you ever, in the competitions at JAC for one act, have we ever gone over in like real-time competitions?
Not since I've been over.
Did y'all pretty much?
All the versions. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta go. Y'all? Good morning. Yes, you may.
Wait, I was going to ask that.
You may. Go ahead.
Hey.
You were good. Any baseball this weekend?
Just practice.
Yeah, it's not too crazy.
Well, it's gonna be hard practice because we've been really bad last week.
Oh, really? So it didn't go well? Did you
Well-
play well?
Yeah, I played really well.
But the other, just as the team, we didn't.
As a team, we did awful. Well, we really did bad our last game, but like we did really bad.
Gotcha.
It was like
errors
It was like
or-
unacceptable.
Like errors?
Everyone was being lazy. Errors.
So it wasn't
Nobody
like,
cared.
it was like mental stuff
Yeah.
that you could control.
And that's why it was a problem. If people make errors, that's gonna happen.
But doing it because of,
Because just being lazy.
focus, no, here. Baseball practices in college were the worst. Like, baseball practices in college were they're awful. Just because it's so long. You would go and it's just all day.
At Wofford, it's like you like work it in with your class schedule. So say I have classes from 8 to 12. I'll get like a 5-man group together, and
Yeah.
then we do like a 5-on-1 basically for an hour. And like every Tuesday and Thursday, they actually have like team practice.
It's pretty cool. I went running when I went to Wofford camp. I would go running and I passed it. It's a nice field, nice stadium field. All right, hey, could y'all start off with this? I need you to do 3 things, okay? All right, so number 1, we need to make sure our phones are up. We won't need them too much for today. Well, actually, I say that. We may have some pictures we could possibly take, but I guess right now, let's put them back. We'll do that. And then the second thing, I want you to, you remember the JT dot things? Y'all remember that? Kind of, sort of?
Okay.
So when we went to the activity, we had this right here, and depending on where you X'd, you would average the 4 per sample together. Do you remember this? And we were just starting to put our dots on the back. If you could take those dots, the top one is the SRS, the second one is number 2, and then the third one's like the stratified by column. We're going to talk over that here in a second, okay? But if you could do that second, and then the third thing, if you could engage with, this is off your homework. This is a homework one. It's number 1, it's Michigan, so we're going to talk about it. And then number 2, I want to also talk about like how we would attack that.
Is that
Cool?
your baby?
I'll show that video in a second.
She was
Yeah,
so small.
yeah. If you, I'll show you in a second. But this one would be number. Hold up, let me see. It's number 21 on your homework. Okay. Yes, you may. All right, so let's do those three things. Again, phones, dots in the back, and then number 21 on the homework. Cool? All right, and we'll do it in that order again. That's fine. I say that the way I do it with seniors is if I say it and then I see the phone out, then I'm like, hey.
Yeah, I'm glad you left your classroom unlocked yesterday because I saw the lights were off. My phone was in here.
Was it?
Yeah.
I made a lot of money from people leaving their phones. Rihanna's face is well, that's good. I know. All right, let's do it. There should be dots around. If there's not, I've got some on the back wall here as well.
I don't actually remember if it's dots if they're not. I did. You did that.
Hey, did y'all get my text? Homework's due tomorrow, either in class or it's online, but it's due by the time class starts, okay? Just as a heads up. I was feeling for it. Again, we'll go to number 21 once you're done. And some of you have already done it, which is great.
Oh no, he's on.
Do you remember where we, on staples 1, 2, and 3 with the SRS, you put like X's on wherever you selected? And then we stratified by row. We'll talk about this in a second to remind us. And then we stratified by column. And wherever the X's were, you're going to average those 4 X's based upon what the actual ratings were at each section within the JT console. Does that make sense? Once you get that dot, you're going to take that dot and you're going to put it on that dot plot. I think I've got 5 people right now. We should have more than that. We should have 15. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Yeah, 15. Okay? So we're missing 10. So once you get those calculated, put those dots on the back wall. If you're done, go to number 21. And if you get done with number 21 and you're like, man, I'm done with that, and you're like 2 steps ahead, go to the check your understanding on that 4.1b section, okay? Which is not on there, is there? It's not on there. I have to show it. I'd forgotten that. So do this. Does everyone have their averages from this? Can I go to the next slide? Cool. All right. So again, you're going to go to number 21. We'll talk about that in just a second. But then also, you could go to the check your understanding if you're also done with number 21. Am I making sense on that?
Is there a way I can come in tomorrow after school for like 20 minutes? Because I watched the podcast and I took notes in the book. But there's like a couple questions like I still understand. I don't think.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay. Wait.
Friday mornings I can't because I have meetings. It's only morning. If you don't have some, if you have some questions still, we can do them tomorrow after school. And I'll allow you that. If you like have some questions and you're like, man, I'm still have some questions on the homework, we can address those after school.
Can we go can I come tomorrow morning because of the quiz? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why would
I think you'll feel better about the quiz after today. Like today in class, let's feel it out. If you still feel like, I'm struggling, I'll leave my classroom maybe unlocked. And then what you could do is come in and then you guys can work together. I think a lot of you can help each other out better than I could. A lot of times. Just helping out with, hey, explaining, talking through. Going from there, that's what I would do. So let's see how we feel after today. Fair enough. Yes, tomorrow. The way that it worked out with the other class, it says today, because it was supposed to be, but the schedule, we didn't have time to do that. Okay. All right, I've got 6 dots. All right, I'm going to call people out here. We're going to call people out. Sydney's coming through. Some of you did not put one up there. Well, about over half of you have not. All right. You did. Chloe's in.
I
Chris and
wasn't
Alex
sure,
are
but
in.
you told me.
We did.
Y'all did?
I'm being completely honest.
All right, that's it. That's the 7 right there. That's the 7. Say again.
I don't know how to find
Like
it.
the sample page, right?
From sample free.
Yes.
Okay, sample free, you're gonna divide them up by rows, or by columns like this, and randomly select one of them from 1 through 4.
So I just
Well, you'll do it through your calculator,
No,
but
it's
your
not.
lower here would be 1, your upper would be 5, 4, your lower 5, your upper 8, and you're gonna choose one of each column.
I know that's okay. So
So you choose one here, like over here you did rows, the only difference is you're gonna columns.
okay, just 1 4 1.
Correct.
I ended up
Which is yeah, you put 11 times that. So it would have been 4. Yeah.
what number 21 are you
All
I can't find these.
This is not on there. It messed up. I just messed up. The only thing you're missing here is this one, just looking at it and then writing a quick thing about it, and then the golden nugget. That was all that was. Should have been on there. That's it. So you're good. Cool, cool. Chris and Shane, did y'all do it?
Yeah,
We didn't write it down.
You didn't write it down? Did y'all put dots up there? Did y'all put the dots down?
We did on Tuesday.
Are we doing that in group?
Say that again.
Are we to put in like spots in group? We don't.
Just
That was one of the things.
you did it.
Yeah.
If you did it individually, that would help the data to expand and be bigger. You'll be able to see it better. That's what we were trying to really do that. Michael, 21? Yeah. That was scroll down. I see the stadium there. So we're gonna try to find a way to stratify and so stratify would be a simple way to see which group that you create. The group you create is completely up to you. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's different areas where you take an SRS from each one, right? Kind of explain that. Why? How would we execute that? And I've read the next question. But it was what would you recommend is the strata? You definitely use the colors and you use SRS. Cluster is a little different. Cluster is about we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to do it with everybody a little bit. I think that one's tough for this one. For 21, maybe I would put right at the beginning before I answer A. I might just say when referring to the study of concerning concessions at Michigan Stadium, we would do blank to stratify and then, or not to stratify randomly. And you would go on it. You just stated at the beginning. I'm good. All right, how are we doing? Are we good? I see dots. 3, 6, 9. And Jaden's coming with 10. 70, or what is that? 67%. That's pretty good. Okay, as Jaden does that, finishes that up, what I wanted to do is I want to apologize for something that I kind of got convicted about the other day, and I realized I hadn't done it with AP Stats. I know that my mind gets racing and we get moving, and this class goes so fast, and I recognize that sometimes it's just trying to keep the main thing. And I like to do this once a week. I'm going to try to do the best I can to try to make this a priority. But just praying for you all in terms of things in your life that we can just stop and reflect on. Praying for you, praying for things that are coming up. First thing, as Bronwyn came in, we were just talking about just like, for instance, One Act today. That's a big deal. They've been practicing really hard. And I know that there's a lot of stuff with that's going on. So if you're not planning on going, Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7, show up, show out, okay? I'm going today, all right? So I'm going today, but if you got a free time, I'm telling you, show up. They're amazing, okay? They're absolutely amazing. So we're going to pray for that. Is there anything else that you could think of that we could pray for within your life or just in someone that you know that we could just stop and pray for?
One of the students at Euclid, I believe, his mom into cardiac arrest last night and died.
Alex, I'm so sorry. What's your what's his name?
Justin.
Justin. Have you been able to talk with him at all?
Yeah, he was there last night, and then we've been texting.
Definitely pray for you, Alex, and Justin as well. Sorry to hear that. Anything else going on? How's our stress level? High? Yeah, especially John Michael. I hear it. It becomes it's hard, isn't it? Like I feel like this time of year stuff. There's a lot going on, a lot of things to be focused on. So yeah, I'm gonna keep just praying for the stress level for different reasons. Got a lot of events going on: softball, volleyball, cross country, and football, and cheerleaders, band, a lot of different things. Water polo, track. Right on. We'll pray for that. So all the events going on. Crispy water polo there. Cool. Anything else that we could pray on?
I guess it's like college apps.
College apps.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to throw something out there too. This has just came to my attention. I don't know if you knew this or not. I knew kind of this, but in Clarkston, literally 20 minutes away from us, is probably, I think it's the biggest refugee area in the United States, where we, as a country, will house refugees that come from not just the Middle East, that's what I thought, but all different walks of life and all around the world. Well, our small group, which is Coach Burks, Coach Burnett, and then my family, we kind of done this small group. We decided we wanted to do something to kind of just help the community. And this came to our attention. We had no idea. But there's a family we're looking to adopt, and they have 8 kids. The wife is pregnant. The dad is works at Home Goods, so like $10 an hour, trying to support a family of 8, 9th on the way. And they sleep. It's crazy. This is in our backyard. They sleep on tarps. They literally sleep on tarps. And they have nothing. They have nothing. One of the girls is paralyzed from the waist down. She cannot control her bowel movements, and so whenever she's ready to go, she just goes because they don't afford diapers or anything like that. And so their house is a wreck. It's a mess. This is literally right down the road. And so we're just thinking like, man, what could GAC do? We're blessed in a big way. And what could we do? Obviously, the 3 families, but then also, what could we do as well? So we're starting to talk about using the 1500 building to house couches or anything that is going to be thrown away to give to like families like this. But I don't know if you ever do that. I never knew that even existed. So I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna pray for those people because here they are in a different country. They don't know the language, and man, a lot of challenges there. So I'm just gonna pray for that family, but then also there as well. And I'll keep you up to date if that's something that your heart is like in. You like, man, that really touched me, or that's something that I'm interested in. We're just trying to spread the word through word of mouth and just trying to let people know, hey, some people need help. Let's help them out in that way. Anything else? Sweet, let's pray. I think did I miss anyone? All right, right on. Let's pray. God, we just pause for a minute before we get into all the stuff that we got to cover today and go through that stuff, and we just reflect on you. Lord, we just we trust in you. We trust in you today through the circumstances. Sometimes it's a good day. Maybe it's easy to trust. Some days it's not as easy. We think right now specifically of Alex and the way that he's helping with his youth group and this boy named Justin. I just ask that you please be with him and his family as they just found out of the passing of his mom. God, I just know that it's got to be extremely hard. We just ask for help for them as they go through this time. Help Alex, too, to continue just to be an encouragement in his life. We just know also that with One Act today, there's a lot of stress and just maybe just a readiness for this to kind of go and be able to perform. But I ask for strength for those that are participating and involved and give them the confidence to do exactly what they've been practicing. We also know for the stress of whether it's school or college, as Jaden brought up, college apps, Lord, we know that you work in that. So as people fill out those apps, I just ask that your will be done in and through the lives lives of those that are in this room. Father, we also think of the events coming up this week, and then specifically with this refugee situation. Lord, you've opened up my eyes to what's going on within our backyard. Lord, I ask that not only would I just feel bad, but that I would respond to this, and that others would even kind of join together and help some of these families out. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Cool. Things that are coming up, the quiz is moved till Friday. I think you heard that maybe through the text or you saw it on campus. That means the homework will be due when you come in the morning. Or if you want to put it online, I'm good with that as well. Just make sure we get that done in that way. I know a couple people asked me if they could come in after school for questions. Feel free to do that, and I won't count it late if you come in after school in that way. Other than that, I think that's it. Y'all have any questions on things coming up? Cool beans. So we started this thing with JT, right? We want to finish this today. We're going to kind of do a couple things where we'll do things together, kind of talk through some stuff, and then afterwards we'll kind of move into some other things where you'll work together as small groups and try to mix it up a little bit. So let's do this. Let's go to the, let me see here. Yeah, I wanted to finish this. Okay, let's finish this. All right, so we have our dots here. I don't think we have 15, but we have close. We have 10-ish. Here's a question. Why do I want more dots here? Say again? More representative of my population. Okay, that's good. Anything else? Lindsay, actually, that's correct. I'll take that. Can y'all see that, or is that ratchet? I'm sorry. There we go. We'll do that. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I would say that the more dots we have, we would have better evidence of the questions we're about ready to ask. It would be better representation of the population. So anytime we can increase sample size, that's a good thing. Okay, that is a good thing. So let's talk through the next part, which is, and by the way, this is where if you want to later on take a picture of this, this might be good just to kind of have, and that way you can compare it. Some of you may or may not want to, that's fine. But sometimes it's a little bit better if you've got something to kind of compare to. So let's go to the next spot here. We've got the average enjoyment for the SRS and the stratified by rows and the stratified by column. Okay, so let's talk about this. SRS, just quickly, what is an SRS? How did we use it for JT yesterday? What did that look like? Could you just explain the process of what we did? 4 tickets. Ooh. Yeah. John Michael, go ahead.
Okay. So what we did was we put it in our calculator to have 16 different. Well, first it was a JT concert, so we had 16 different seats in 4 different rows.
Good. So we had row 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Uh-huh.
I liked it.
And this was completely random because we put it in our calculator, choosing 4 different seats.
Good. So we have to state this, right? Label, which you said, John Michael. You said, all right, label all the way to 16, right? Then we have to do what? We have to randomize this, which, what did we use again? The calculator to do that. And then we choose, right? And how did we choose? We chose 4, yeah, pulled it out, and then after we chose 4, let's say we've got these 4 right here. What would we do with those 4 numbers from the same? We averaged them together. Can anyone tell me what we called this for 4 tickets? Raise your hand. So no, Alex?
It's an SRS.
It is true. I'll give you one there. Specifically, what type of SRS, Lindsay? This would not be stratified in this context. Brianna, did I see your hand there? No? Okay, I thought you did. I'm sorry. Michael?
Oh, wait, yeah.
Say again?
Simple.
This isn't SRS, but specifically. Brianna? Or Jaden? I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Wait, I was going to say something.
This is, but we call this what type of sample specifically, Catherine?
Cluster?
This is not a cluster in this case. Sarah?
Representative?
This is representative. These are all, this is true. But we call it something specific. It was like from our first activity with Beyonce. I don't want to give the next part away. What would it be?
The sample of a sample.
Which is called a sampling distribution. We're gonna go 2 and 2 because we have some here. So a sampling distribution, because in each of these, right, it's a sample or a part of a sample. Cool? All right, did I miss something? No? Okay, good. All right, so this is an SRS, so y'all are right. It's a sample of a sample. Y'all follow me? Y'all good? Okay, we're going to go quick here. Let's go to the next part. Does someone want to tell us what we did, just as a review, for the stratified by row? What did we do in that context, Lindsay?
We divided them into rows.
Nice.
And then,
Nice.
yeah, and then you chose one from each row, but used the calculator to do the lower and upper for each row, and then it randomly gave you one of them.
Good. Nicely done. So how would I describe that if it was on an FRQ? I thought Lindsay did a great job. How would we label this? First of all, we divided it into what, she said? Rows. That's what we state first. How did we label? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, numerically from 1 through 4, right? Good. And then we did what for each row?
You selected one position.
Selected one, and how did we select it? Randomly. That's important to say, by use of calculator. And I would put the notation of the calculator in there, and then go from there. And we chose one, right? Say again.
Do we have to?
I would, just in case, for an FRQ. Now, on the homework, if you don't, I know what you mean by calculator. I'm fine. But just in case, because you know how quirky they can be on that. And that's how we would go.
What is wrong?
What about this out from me?
Lindsay.
Good night.
I know.
It's usually you. That was bad. I'm sorry, James. I will give 5 tickets. That was a good one. I will give 5 tickets for someone who could raise their hand and tell me there's one more comment at the end. We've always got to say, whether we use calculator, table D, anything. We always say at the end. Catherine?
To choose, ignore the repeated ones.
Ian?
And the ones out of the range.
Perfect. So with table D, we're talking table D here, right? We ignore repeated values, and we ignore any values outside of my range. With the calculator, is it necessary for me to ignore values outside of my range? No, because what you put in is your range, right? Yeah, we're good. All right, questions on this? Are we good? We Gucci? Okay, this is the big part that I want to make sure you get down. Which method was the best? All right, again, SRS, stratified by row, stratified by column. Now, because some of you did not put dots on here, this might not be as, I know I'm a little salty. It may not be as good in being able to see this, but if we did this 50 times, you'll really see the dots that are there, okay? The other class over here, you kind of could see it, but this will work. Which method was best and why? Let's go, Shane.
I think the method of stratifying by row is best because you got a representative from each row, so it kind of spread the data out and was a better representation of your population.
I like that. So we would say the best is what? By row. So I stratify by row.
I don't understand why the first one wouldn't be a better one because it's more I want to look something less normal, kind of. It looks like if everyone had bigger dots in there, it would have been a normal distribution.
No, that's a really good thought. Normal is not necessarily better. What means better? Does anyone know what better, what word I would use in comparing?
Comparing to better?
Yeah, why is this one better?
Because it has basically has an example from each experience instead of having a couple of examples from the first row. You have examples from each row, so it's more variety, I guess.
I like that. It's actually the same experience, right? So we take one from each experience. To kind of put that down, and I'll put this word down. We'll say that the strata, this right here, the strata is just the groups, by the way, if you were wondering. Right over JT's head here. The strata, the best way to do this is to characterize by similar characteristics. So what was the similar characteristic that Chris was talking about? The similar experience was the row, right? Does that make sense? Those that are towards the front have a better experience than those that are towards the back, okay? All right? I do have a story about this. One time I won tickets on 94.9 The Bull, okay? And I don't judge.
For
Those
who?
of you who don't like country. For Zach Brown.
Oh.
And I like Zach Brown a lot. They're musically very good. I was taking me and my wife, and we always go to Verizon. We love Verizon. Beautiful. We got tickets, though, to Zach Brown Band at Lakewood. We thought, me being dumb, thought Lakewood was the same as Verizon. It's not. I did not know this, okay? So I took my wife out, and we got lawn seats, and we were out there. Totally different experience. Have you been to both? Some of you are like, yeah, I've been to both.
My parents don't
And
like
it was a good concert, but it was definitely a different experience. The later it got, the crazier it got. We got to say we left a little earlier than what we anticipated. Still had fun though, still a good time. But when you are towards the front, it's a different experience than those that are in the back. So stratifying that by row, by characteristics that are similar, that's the important part. Cool? John Michael?
My senior pictures are 10:30. I don't know why they put them in an AP class, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know that.
Say this one more time.
My senior pictures are at 10:30. I don't know why they put them in an AP
Perfect.
class.
What time do we got now?
10:27.
Perfect. I'm podcasting right now. I'm podcasting the whole thing today, so you can go back to it. That's cool. All right, are we good? Y'all follow me on this? All right, so I would say, Chris, you actually said the first thing. Michael, I'm putting you on the spot. Can you give me another reason why the second one would be better? So that's true. Similar characteristics. This is more similar than doing it just randomly or by columns, right? Why would this one also be better than the other two?
I feel like the data was more clustered centrally.
Boom. So we would say that down here, this is big. I would say that it has less variability. Okay? All right, less variability. It's hard to see because only 10 of you did it up here. I'm sorry, that's really bad. This is really bad. But if I had more, you would really see that this would be more spread than the middle part. The middle part, what do we say, has less variability. Therefore, it gets closer to my population. Yes. Yeah, no, it's crazy. A lot further back. All right, questions on this? Y'all Gucci on this? All right, let's go to the golden nugget. Let's go there. Okay? All right, get this down. Ooh, all right, well, let me kind of back up. Let me do this. All right, first thing you need to put golden strips. Is that what you call it?
No, I think it's true.
I'm judging. All right, let's do this first, okay? Talk about three things. Anytime you have an FRQ and you describe an observational study, which is what we've been doing, when you describe this, you need to do three things. You need to put this down big time. No matter what you use, cluster, stratified, or SRS, you've got to label, randomize, select. Okay? Those are the three big things. We did. Just make sure if you want to put that down, the green part over here, Brianna's right. Right here, you've already written down on the last section. But if I was saying three big things for this section, label, randomize, select. You got to do it there. I messed it up. If you want to just put it on the back side, my apologies. I don't mess up a lot, but I did today.
Mine has it.
You have it?
Because she has yours. Took yours.
Yeah, that's right. You took mine.
She did yours.
You stole my notes? Steal my notes?
Yeah, she did.
No,
Yeah, she literally
she
stole
lost
your notes.
them.
Wait,
Hey, do I have my notes? Are they gone? I don't have them. All right, put them down. Put it down. All right, the ones in blue, you got to get down stratified and cluster. Okay, we're going to talk over this. This is, again, an area that I want to make sure we get. Okay, stratified and cluster. I would put this one, so this is day 2. There should be a blank page on the back of the first JT part. I would just put them right there on that side, and that way you've got them on that part.
How do we do like a cluster sample with the JT like seats and stuff?
That's a good question.
Because we only did stratify.
Yeah, what I would do is if I did a cluster, You could cluster this a bunch of different ways. In fact, the best cluster, if I was to do this, right? So here I am. I would cluster by columns. The reason why, okay, so if I cluster by columns and label this 1, 2, 3, and 4, in this cluster, I have a front row, second row, third row, and fourth row in each one, right? Does that make sense? So a cluster, and you're going to see a visual here in a second that I think will help. A cluster is like a little mini cloud in each one. It's not an SRS. I put people in these clusters. Does that make sense? So, like, I've made the column. Yeah. I didn't, like, randomly choose them. I made it. So once I do this, then I go to my calculator with my upper being 1, or my lower being 1, my upper being 4, and I'm only going to choose one of these when I do my random integer. Okay? So let's say I chose 2. That means a cluster. I choose all 4 of these, and that's what I sample. Does that make sense?
Is that how it's gonna look like in mostly everything?
In everything, yes.
So like with the Michigan.
The Michigan one is a little weird because it's not as evident. It's not as obvious. That's why I wanted to do it. I thought it was tough. You could have probably, some people say, hey, you choose the section. Everyone in that section is who you sample, right? Technically, that would work, but there's a little caveat that I want to go over within that. But within a cluster, you sample everyone in that column, everyone that's there. Within a stratified, you go by column and you randomly select one in each column or row or whatever.
Would this be closer to if I selected just the first 2 rows and then randomly selected 4 from just the first 2 rows?
No, because not necessarily on this. You're saying columns, right? Yeah, so in order to be a cluster, whatever I select randomly, I do everyone within that column, row, whatever I divide it up to. Does that make sense? I think it'll help once I use the illustration. It's a little weird.
What do you mean by do? I do that.
Does that
Chrissy, can I take a picture?
Say it one more time, Chris.
Why are you copying me?
First 2 weeks ago.
Does that make sense? When I use the illustration at the big house, I think it'll make a little bit of sense. Because it's hard unless you see examples of that. Cool. All right. Hey, let's do this. You get these down? All right. So let's talk about a couple of highlighted points, and then I'm going to have you kind of do this. But I want to just spend just literally 5 minutes on going over that example problem, and then also kind of deciphering between this stratified and cluster. Again, remember I told you this is probably one of the tougher things within this unit, okay? All right, so let's talk about this. A stratified random sample is more effective because, and this is where Michael came, it reduces the variability. So just to highlight, if you want to just put stratified is effective, especially when it reduces the variability. The one that has the least variability, that's the sample that we want to choose, okay? Like Chris said, it was similar experiences, and so we group them with similar experiences. And that's how we would attack it. All right, the number 2, you could do it by row or column. You want to make sure, this is where Chris was at, one that is most strongly associated with my response, which is, in this case, the enjoyment level, right? That's the one we would want to pick. Column would not be the best option. It would work, but it wouldn't be the best option that would be there. Look at number 3, stratified random samples take an SRS from each strata. What's strata again? Another word? Group. Just a fancy word for group. So just a heads up on that. So I take an SRS from each group. That would be strata. Cool? All right, let's do this. I'll hold off real quick here. As you're writing that down, could someone give me an example of a situation? I'll get some good tickets for this, where you would use stratified and then tweak it to be able to then say this is what a cluster would look like. How many of you are confused on that? Confused on that? Okay. Some people were last class too. Could someone give me an example, maybe? Of a exactly where you kind of do a situation where you could cluster that or you could stratify that and what that would look like. Sarah, you want to start and then I'll get to Lindsay.
Would it be like, this is very out there. If like we had all the students in GAC and we like organized them by alphabetical, like in like I don't know,
Love that.
Like 180, maybe like 60 in rows.
Yeah, so we're talking last name, right? So GAC's our population, right? And then we'll go A's, B's, last name, right? C's, so on and so forth. Okay.
Yeah, for stratified, you can maybe pick like, I don't know, 10 of the rows from alphabetical and survey them on, I don't know, what they think about lunch.
Good. I'll bet.
Chicken and pasta.
That's right.
But like clusters would be like picking one letter and just, or like,
Sarah,
just
that,
everybody calls one letter.
I'm not just saying this. That's probably the best example that someone's given in a class for the last 2 days. I will tell you why that's perfect. Because here, if I did stratified, these are my groups. These are my strata, right? And so what would I do? Well, in blue, that would be my SRS. I would take, let's say, an SRS of 10 from what? Each one, right? All the way to Z. Okay? That's stratified. Okay, that's stratified. Why? Because I divided it into groups, and I'm taking an SRS from each one. Y'all follow me? All right, now, let me do it in a different color. A cluster would be labeling these from 1 all the way to 26, right? There's 26 letters, right?
Yes.
I think, okay, good. Praise God. All right, so then I would randomly select, let's say 3 of the last name letters. So let's say I got B. Everyone that had the last name of B would be selected. Y'all follow me? Let's say this was J or whatever, okay?
W.
Word, right? That's right. And then maybe it was Z or W. Well,
Z.
maybe a different one. But yeah, you would do that and then get that, and then everyone within that group would be sampled. Y'all follow the difference?
Yeah.
Okay? Y'all good on that?
That could work. What you're saying is that could work either way, as far as like, because for the concert, it would be kind of like you can't really use clustered. So if you do this, you can use it either way. Is that what you're saying?
You could use clustered. I use this example over here. It's hard to see here. But with Shane, I said if you divided it up into columns,
But like,
Columns,
wouldn't
yeah.
it wouldn't be like a good way to represent the whole population.
this way wouldn't be awful. The reason why is experience is the closer you are, the better, right? And then as you go, it gets worse and worse. But columns include one of each, doesn't it? So you would actually include all representations of our population, which would be
And that would
perfect.
still, and that would be clusters.
And then, yeah, let's say I randomly select a column. I sample everyone in there.
Really cool. Like,
Hey, y'all, let's keep it down. Keep it down for me. I just want to make sure that we could have this conversation with those that need it. Okay? Say again.
And the roads would be fast.
You could do the rows, and it's still random. You could still label it. It just wouldn't be the best. You'd have higher amounts of variability. I would say that if you did it by this method, it would have similar variability to what we had on the second one, stratified by rows. Okay? So here's the thing.
Like people that would be closer in the middle would have a better experience, don't you think? So if you're like off on the sides, that kind of doesn't make for great.
This is another variable that may affect our data, right? So some of them, this is a confounding variable that maybe we aren't able to utilize within our study because all of these confounding variables affect, right, what's going on. So we can't ever eliminate all confounding variables, but our goal is to do what? Remove as many as we possibly can, right? And so if we remove as many as we possibly can, we're going to create less variability, which will allow our X bar, our sample mean, to be closer to our true mean. That's really the goal. Am I making sense on that part? Cool. Hey, let's do this. Before I allow you to do something, let's go over number 21, because that one was one we were confused on. It is off the homework one. I want you to see a video of my daughter. She was, I think she was like 1 going on, no, she was 2. She just turned 2. And we decided that we were going to take her, treat her, raise her right, and we were going to take her to the big house. And this is kind of what happened, which makes me...
She was 2 there. She looks so little.
No, I think she was 1.5. You're right. You're right, Jane. They can walk at that age. It's crazy, right? They can walk at that age, yes. All right, so let's see if we could check this out.
Don't have the big house. Don't have the big house.
There she is. Treat her right. Every Saturday, guess what we do? It's a huge party. Huge party every Saturday. Treat her right. Treat her go blue before we go to bed. You gotta treat her right. Gotta treat her right. All right. So this, by the way, this was not made up by me. So some people are like, "Coach, you're biased." You're right. 100% biased. 100%. But this is actually in our textbook, which made me really happy. So I thought we gotta use it today. So here we go. Let's go for the first one. There are multiple right answers. So when we talk through this, there are multiple right answers. But I thought this one would be really good just in addressing it, okay? This is not up here, but let's talk about this. There's 112,000 people in the big house on a given Saturday. The question that I have is if we did an SRS of 1,000 people, of what they spent on concessions, how would I execute an SRS of 112,000 people? What could I do with that? We'll come back and get some things. Just a basic SRS. This is not on here, I know. Got 4 seconds. We can get in a good way. We could attack.
Break it up by section.
Say that again, Chris?
You can break it up by section.
Correct. We're going to get to that on part A. But if we just did a basic SRS, right? 112,000 people, how could I execute that? Shane?
You could like randomly assign every seat number and then just randomly choose 100 of them.
Yeah. So literally, guess what? One person here, one person here, one person here, one person here, all the way around until I got 1,000 people I sampled. Now, question: is that doable?
Yeah.
You sure?
Really hard.
That would be really. I think it'd be really hard. Okay. So probably not the best option. Probably not the best option, but it is a option. Okay. All right, Chris, we're gonna come to you for part A because you said earlier. If the AD or athletic department decided that they were going to do a stratified random sample, what would be the groups that you would put people in? You could do it either one of 2 ways.
Breaking up by section.
I'd say that's perfect. How many of you did by color? You'd be right too. I could see either way. So you could go to each section and then take what at each section, Chris? What would we do at each section? Perfect, yeah. So literally we take what from each? An SRS, let's say 100 or whatever, right? It doesn't say the amounts, but we'll just say that we do an SRS from each one, okay? Now, do not confuse this. Does that mean in section 19, okay, that we are sampling everyone in that section? No, it means we take an SRS from each section. Got me? Divide it into groups, take an SRS from each group. Okay, y'all good?
So wait, if we're taking an SRS of 100, that's not 100 people. That's just
An SRS of 100 means we go to that section and we randomly select 100 people from this.
But then you'll have
Each
more
place.
people from. Oh wait.
Yeah, you're
if
right.
you-
Then 1,000 and whatnot, or is that what you're saying?
Wait, no, I'm saying like if you did it by like sections like 19, 18, and 17, like that would be fine. But if you did it by color, then wouldn't you have like a lot more people from the green? I mean, wait, never mind. I forgot.
I know what you're saying. No, if I selected, no, it's perfect. That's actually a great analysis there. Here's the thing. I don't mind that, though. For me, it doesn't bother me. Because if there's less sections over here, that means there's less people paying these seats anyway. So if there's less in our sample when we stratify, I'm okay with that. You follow me? That's a great analysis, though, Jane. That's really good. All right, questions on that? We're good? All right, the next one, I will give you all the tickets in my hand. I've got 8 right now, and I'll give you 8. If you could get this next part right, because this next part's a little sticky. All right? Shane.
All right, here we go. So every single section's numbered already. So you just put in your calculator 1 to 44, and you randomly select a section, and then
Maybe we select 5 sections or something.
5 sections, and then you sample every single person in that section, or the sections that you've randomly selected.
Is he right?
No.
I'm going to give him 4 because that is a cluster. Here's the problem. Each cluster has to be representative of my what? Population. You're going to see me draw something in a second I think will help. So if that's true, if I selected, let's say 27, and everyone in that section is selected, got me? Once I randomly select, I select everyone here and I sample everyone here. Is that green part representative of my entire population? No. So this is, again, a little sticky. Can anyone kind of think outside the box a little bit? Because you kind of have to in this one. And if you put that on a test because it was like, this one's not as obvious, I would probably give you most of the credit. And the ones that are on the test are much clearer, I think, than this. But can you think outside of the box of how you could sample? within this, where it includes everyone? Mike?
If you're trying to get everyone, you could do the same method but per sex. No?
So yeah, okay, try. See what
Okay, so like, so I can't see the numbers in the red.
26 to 20.
So you could do this is our 1 to 6 really, and then pick one section in that, and then continue around to the other color.
And then sample everyone in that area?
Or you'll
I
pick
never
one.
thought of it that way.
So you'll pick one, and then you'll sample everyone in that, and then move on to the next. Therefore, you'll have a representation.
Sample one in here.
Yes. And then you'll have a representation from
Oh, yeah.
all the other.
That is
Wow.
right.
I wasn't thinking that.
Wow.
That's 10 tickets.
That's 10 tickets. Nicely done. Nicely done. You deserve to dab there. Okay. Alright, very good. I'll tell you what, I've got 8 here. I've got 12 here if you can figure out. It wasn't what I was thinking. If you can read Coach Jay's mind.
I know. I can't. Michigan.
This is true. You could probably say Michigan, my daughter, or my wife, and then probably
Wait,
it's
can I
true.
ask a
Or
question?
red zone. Red zone. Or
Is it-
basketball.
Is it with the calculator?
It is with the calculator. John Michael, well, that's quick.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Could you do it for
Make up to the
only
week.
like
This is tough. I'm going to get Sydney and then I'm going to say it because it's tough. Go ahead, Sydney. Try it out.
Could you take a cluster from the Michigan sideline and the visitor sideline? Because they're two different teams kind of, and with that, I don't know if that would be more.
That might be a variable that we can control. I like that. That's not what I was thinking, but very similar to Michael. That was a good thought. I like that. Shane, you got one more? Here we go.
So you split the stadium in half, right?
Okay.
And then you find a cluster of 5 on each half, and then sample those sections on each side of the stadium.
I could see that because you would kind of control that variable that's there. I like it. Here's what I would say. You ready? Not that it's perfect. Some of the ideas, there's no like one way. I would say in the big house, the way this works is the first row, because it's a bowl, corresponds to the entire. Does that make sense? It comes all the way around. Row 2 kind of comes right behind it. Row 3, 4, all the way to it's like 100 something. If you then randomly selected each row corresponds to what? The entire population. Does that make sense? It would actually be easier than an SRS or a stratified. Why?
How are you going to have one
Say again, Chloe? Yeah, because literally what I would do is I would start at row 1. Let's say that was the one I sampled. Hey, what do you think, Sydney? What do you think, Jaden? What do you think? Instead of going to 100,000 or 1,000 different seats. Does that make sense? Where I have to go here and then here and then here. It would be easier, not convenience. I don't want to get that confused. It would be easier to do it that way than probably stratified. It'd be easier to do cluster of a row rather than doing a stratified where if I go here, I have to do 100 different people in that section, not seated together because it's random, right? That would be tougher, and especially an SRS would be even tougher because that would be all over the place. Okay? All right, how do y'all feel on that? Yes, Lindsay.
So you're not. Never mind.
We good on that?
Yeah.
Rocking. Okay. So let's do this. I want you to get the reps in real quick. I want you to try to do numbers 1 and 2. Okay. With someone next to you, you do not have to write this huge paragraph on the FRQ. I would expect that. Okay. But all I want you to do right now is tell me what is the strata, and then how would you label, randomize, and select, just like quick notes. Okay. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. We'll turn on some tunes and then we'll go. Ready? Break. Oh, my fault, Michael. My fault. Do this. You could write this on the back. You could also write this on a whiteboard too, okay? Either one of those would work.
Oh, wait. Oh, so that's not on here.
Or 15 minutes.
class is going by fast.
So we're not trying to figure out how to break up the pencils into three different.
You can do like strap tens,
So maybe
yes,
sharpen
Oh, seeing it overnight.
each row.
Wait, what was it?
There was a 10.
Hey, real quick, what's the strata? Just real quick, I'm hearing different things.
Group.
Yeah, it's the group, right? Hold on, I'm frozen. What would be the similar strata that we would probably use in this instance?
No, the boxes at 10.
Are the boxes the same? Meaning, are they the similar groups that are there? I would say probably not. It's from all different shifts, isn't it? Aren't the shifts the groups?
You get 100 pencils from each. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be right? Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. I would say the shift, and maybe that wasn't very clear, the shift would probably end up being the what we'd strata, what we'd use as the groups. John Michael?
Why couldn't the boxes be the strata?
Yeah, good question. I think that it's assumed, this is probably a badly worded question, we probably put in there the fact that boxes were composed of pencils that were all just put in this huge vault, and then we just take out of that huge vault randomly to be able to make a box. So each box could have pencils from each of the three shifts.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So here's the thing, and I wanted to make sure I got you before you kept going. That means the cluster would be the what? That would be the boxes. All right, that's probably the weird one right there, okay? So again, that's John Michael, you're right. It probably could be either based on the wording, but that was what should have been stated.
Oh,
Yeah, what's up? Strata and clusters are in strata. Strata is groups that are similar in some way. So each of the three shifts are similar, right? We have a group of pencils for evening,
So we have day,
afternoon, right? Each of those three are the different stratas. Clusters are little clouds that represent the entire population. So a box represents pencils that come from both afternoon, morning, and at night. Okay? So because of that, cluster would be each box, and therefore clusters again are mini versions of the population, and we randomly select boxes. Stratify, we sample everyone in that every pencil in that box. The shifts, I randomly select. I randomly select pencils that are coming from each shift. That would be a stratify. Does that make sense? So stratas are similar. Clusters are different. Clusters are better representation of the population. I randomly select clusters and then I sample how many. Yeah, 10 boxes, but every one of those pencils I sample in that box.
I need like somebody to show me like what that shit is.
Before we go off to college,
The sample is, we're trying to get 300 pencils, right? If we stratify, I would take 100 pencils from each shift.
Like, I don't want to
You know
come
what I
up
mean?
with
If I was doing cluster, I would select,
you have to like make sure it's the
how
same.
many pencils are in each box, does it say? 10, so I would select, if I wanted 300, I would select 30 boxes at random, and I would sample every pencil in that box. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
That would be if we put all the pencils together, and we just said, let's choose 300.
With
So we pick in here.
With the count, just random. Number every pencil. How awful would that be? Number every pencil. And then after I do that, I randomly select 300. Right? So
The only difference between them is you're looking at pencils from the shift for the strata, and then for the cluster, you're looking at the pencils in the box.
Correct. Also, with that cluster, when we randomly select a box, we sample everything in there. For the shifts, I don't sample everyone at that shift. I take a random sample from each. Sunday shift or night shift, I would say let's do 100. After
This is
100,
like the only
morning
class
100.
I
After
have. And this embodies the thing.
John Michael, and then I'll get to Kat.
So, the 300 pencils,
I forgot.
they're,
Taking
they're not like 100 so they are. Okay, so
So to get 300, we get an SRS.
Apology is hard.
Yeah.
Like, we're studying the brain, and it's very little bit of the brain.
They were carving on my hand, I guess. I don't know.
they are hand carved pencils.
This is really true story.
I haven't had a lot of
True story there. But yeah, that's what we would do. And then boxes, the clusters are the boxes.
So that would be 30 boxes.
Everyone
So,
needs
there's
a
like multiple
Yep,
different
that's right.
pieces like
Catherine?
like we memorize SQL and like what they do.
Yeah, so the question was what is like that? Think of box as a mini version of all
I have them back to back.
So think of shift as those pencils are going to be similar. That makes sense. So, can I show you something real quick? Maybe that will help. All right, here's what I need you to do. Kristen, do you have something to say? Was it a confusion on, do this, ask me real quick. It might be the same as Catherine's that I was going to address. Check it. Yeah.
Wait, so number one, you select 100, you randomly select 100 pencils from the first shift. You just randomly select.
Okay. All right, let me do this. I want eyes up here because what I'm seeing is I think it's half and half. I think half of you are fine. I think half of us are not getting it, and maybe it's me communicating. So I'm gonna give it a different way. Okay, so I'm gonna come at it a different way. It's not. Here's the deal. I think the big thing. You know the definition. You probably could tell me what a cluster is. I think the big thing is now that we put a real world illustration with it, how do I attack it that way? Okay. So real quick, do y'all remember the huge cloud thing? Y'all remember that? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to this cloud real quick, and I'm going to add two things to it. And it's going to be related to what we just did. Okay? All right, what I'd like for you to do is, again, this is our population. I want you to put another cloud off to the side here. And this also would be representative of my population too. Okay? So this is kind of the same cloud. All right? In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack just for a second. And I want to actually use this as our big cloud. So this is the population. Stratified would be this. We divide it up into sections. Okay? Now for us, let me do this just for the illustration. We'd have 3, wouldn't we? Why? 3 shifts. You have 1, 2, and 3, right? That's stratified. So if we're trying to get a sample of 300, remember stratified is we take each area when we stratify it, and we take what from it? We take an SRS from each. Good. And Jaden, you said that perfectly. We take an SRS from each. If we want to get to 300, what would the SRS be of? 100. Okay? Kristen, are you good on that? Are you all good? Catherine, does that help you? So that's what we would do to attack it this way. Like I told John Michael, the question could be worded better, I think, to help you with what the strata would be. But let's just say that I gave that to you, that it was by shift. That's how we would attack this. Okay? All right, now by cluster, it's a little different. I'm going to do this here. Let me kind of wipe this off. Clusters, you have little mini clouds. If you struggle with this, write this down. Draw this out. Okay? So each of these mini clouds have to be representative of my what? Of my population. It has to look like this, right? If I took each shift as a cluster, that each shift is going to be different, right? Those that work later probably would produce the pencils differently of some kind, okay? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to number these, right? 1 through whatever, right? These represent the boxes. So if I did 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, then I randomly select what?
1 of 30.
Yep, 1 of 30, right? So we select this. We select this one. We select this one. And then what do I sample?
All of the cloud.
Every pencil in the box.
Every pencil in the box. Good. And that produces my random sample.
Wait, so would you do 10
Good.
boxes from each shift?
I would say that, and this is something, again, with the question. I would say each box represents every shift because it was all put together. And then, yeah, we're just going to pretend they were all mixed up.
Okay.
Which, again, better question. It will be better on the AP exam. You'll know that.
Like, can you,
Yeah, let's use GAC. So it would be inappropriate for me to cluster freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors to say, let me see a good question, controversial. How did homecoming go? Okay, I'll tell you what, it's going to be different for freshmen than seniors. So a cluster sample would not be appropriate to use freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors and say, okay, I'm going to randomly select a class. Oh, freshmen, okay? I sample everyone in the freshman class. That's not appropriate because that's not representative of the GAC community. How could I fix that, though, to be a cluster? Tough, right?
Alphabetical order.
Alphabetical order is probably the best. We could also put them into different groups, right? And say, okay, just hodgepodge, we'll have homerooms again, except, no, I love that word. Everyone's together, guys and girls are together, freshmen through seniors are together. Chapel seats would be good too. Both.
Just give them the whole.
Really?
Give them the whole stack.
Does that make sense? Are we making sense? All right. Good. Okay, let's see timing. I don't know why I just did that, but I just felt it. All right. Let's go. We get out at 11:25. All right, so we're going to talk about something fun. You ready? This is going to be controversial. You ready? All right, let's do this. Skip, 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 skip. Oh, yes, this is where we're at. Okay. How many of you, we're seniors, right? We can talk about this honestly, right? We have an open class. We can talk about this honestly. How many of you, this is kind of maybe a more serious topic, so I want to approach it that way. I want to approach this the right way, okay? But I want to talk about it. I think it's good to be talked about. How many of you have said that you've experienced some sort of bias in your lifetime over anything? Over anything. Cool. Does anyone, you don't have to tell me the situation. Could you tell me, it's a bad question. Okay, we'll leave it right there. So here's what I would say on this. This can also be seen in statistics, okay? This is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. When you do statistics, when you get data, when you put data out there that 50% of GAC thinks this, or that 75% of people think this, or so on and so forth, there is some, you have to have integrity when doing that. Meaning that if you sample poorly, that's an integrity issue. And the problem is that we're seeing that all around, whether it's social media or whether you see it all the time on Fox News and CNN. The way they word the question is what? How do they word it?
So they get the answer they want.
Towards a certain response. They're trying to get something out of it so that they can use the data to say, well, look at this, right? And it happens all around us. It happens within politics all the time, too. And it happens, again, all around us. I'm going to give you two illustrations here. These are real-life situations. And we can kind of have fun with this. Last class did as well. But it can be a really serious thing if you think about this. And this is where discrimination comes into play. This is where sexism comes into play. Racism comes into play. And you may not actually think that you're doing this, but if you sample inappropriately, in essence, you're participating in that, whether you realize it or not, okay? So this is actually, it's a very serious thing, and I'm passionate about it. One of my favorite courses that I took was diversity in education. I was like, I didn't know what to expect. It opened up my eyes, y'all, to the mess of just the world around us. I'm going to bring this up. This might, hopefully I don't offend anybody, but I might, and that's okay. Dr. Lindsay's chapel last year, it rocked me. I'll be honest, it rocked me. I had to look at it a little different. The statistics that he brought up, you know, the first thing I did when he brought up those statistics, hey, where'd you get those statistics? How were those statistics conducted, right? And it's valid. I'll just be honest with you, it's valid. The source is valid. What you do with the information, that's up to you, but how it was conducted, how it was pulled, you can't deny that it was valid. Cool? All right, so I want to say that because I think that statistics is powerful. It can cause change. It really can cause change. And so watch this. This is pretty interesting. All right, first one. The advice columnist Ann Landers, these are true, by the way, once asked her readers to write in commenting on the question, if you had to do it over again, would you have children? Of the 10,000 responses, 70% said no, so Ann concluded that 70% of the population believe that kids are not worth it.
That must be it.
Wow. It must be true, because Ann Landers said it. No, that's not true. You saw my daughter. You know my daughter, okay? She's awesome. I would never say that. Of course not.
But you're the 30%.
If you had to do
Yeah,
it
you're
over
the-
again,
No, I'm not the 30%.
That's half our parents in here would not.
That's true. Let's do this. If you are on this side of the room, raise your hand. Y'all are the 70%.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so with that being said, why is this a problem? What's the problem with this study? Brianna,
Yeah, I don't.
it is a woman,
Okay,
yes.
what if she was sampling people of lower incomes? That could have something to do with it. People would be like, no, because we don't.
This is true. Good. True. Confounding variables here, not controlling, right? Good. Sarah.
Her wording is kind of like, I don't know, it seems like a consequence, like if you had to do it. Like if you, I feel like if you had the choice to do it again, it would be like better. Like,
Yeah, I agree. The wording is absolutely, it's skewing the response, is it not? Skewing the response. Yeah, let's go, Jade.
She also could have intentionally found people whose kids are like really terrible. Like, you know, like.
What type of readers does she have? Is my
Yeah.
question. Yeah. I agree. Let's go, Catherine. This is all good.
She only asked her readers, and there's a bunch of people who have readers.
Yeah, is this is good. What you just said? She just put it out there, right? What type of sample is this?
Voluntary.
It's a voluntary sample, right? I would absolutely say that it's voluntary. Good. Michael, you got something?
If you would have had to do it over again, would you have children? That's kind of implying that would you have children again, kind of? So maybe
Yeah.
have more children, and a lot of people are going to say no if they're in, I guess, older ages.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Depending on how many children they have, you have one. I'm telling you right now, you come hang out in our house. That's a good birth control right there. I'm telling you, right there. I'm telling you. It's true. It's true. You have kids around. You have 3 kids around. All of a sudden, man, you start wondering whether you want to have a 4th or not. So yeah, it's really true. I should have said that, should I? I'm sorry. John Michael. John Michael.
She might have sampled people who have younger children and like that are keeping them up all night or something, and that might skew the results.
Bingo. They might have just had a baby, and they have a crying baby right now, and so they could be emotional when responding to this. It's completely true. These are all true. Jake?
Kind of what someone else was saying, actually. Like, they could be super old and, like, thinking that, it means, like, they have to start as old as they are. So they, like, probably die because their kids got older.
Yeah. All of these are valid. These are valid reasons. Here's the thing. What controls? Oh, this is good. I just thought about this. Good job, Coach. All right.
That's a ticket, Coach.
I should deserve a ticket.
We didn't need to.
Oh, yeah, it's good. I just forgot my question. No, yeah, I got it. What controls confounding variables? That's a good question. What is the process of controlling confounding variables? You got all these, if you can tell me.
That's a golden nugget right there.
Chris.
Motion. Wait, that's
You're good, you're good.
No, I'm
So,
in the wrong
control, if we, because all these are confounding variables, how do I control it?
Oh,
Sorry. How do you control it? By, like, trying to eliminate bias?
How do I do that?
Hold on. How do you eliminate bias? Well, I feel like you can't 100% eliminate bias, but you can reduce it.
How?
How do you reduce it?
I'm giving you dabs because that's you're all over it.
Because you can reduce it by, I don't know, just like thinking, oh, jeez.
It's not a bad thing.
I don't know.
You're rocking. You're rocking. Alex, you got something?
She could have
Thank you, dude.
created a stratified sample, so she got like all different groups of parenting, like people who are older, people who have
This
small
is
kids.
good. This is like You're all over, but there's one word. I'm needing one word, Brianna.
Like
Randomizing.
Oh, Brianna. Oh, wait.
What was that for? What was that for? Hey, we're gonna have to go quick through the second one because we gotta move now. Number 2. And by the way, this is great input. Okay, this is really good. I love this stuff because it has direct. I'll tell you what. Here's what I'll do. I will give you +3 on the next test if you can go online and find me 3 situations where you'll find bias within the real world context. Cool? All right, I just made that up. I'll throw that on campus. By the test, you got to give me a question.
Give yourself a
10. No, I'm joking.
I'll find out.
Number two. A news reporter. All right, this is a good one. A news reporter wanted to know the current opinion. This is true, by the way, of how well. This is old too, by the way, obviously. Well, Barack Obama was doing in his job as president. He went to the mall, interviewed people who looked approachable, found that 75% of the population opposed Barack Obama. All right, talk to me, Chris.
Depending on like what mall you went to and like the area of the mall can like show like the people who shop at the mall. So like
Yeah.
it's like depending on the depending on the area. So in this situation, the area may be like people who are against Obama. It's like the majority of the people in there will oppose.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton wrong with this. Is there not? I mean, like tons of reasons. Cindy, I see you shaking your head.
Depending on who they thought was approachable, they could have asked people who were already biased against Barack Obama, just depending on who they thought was approachable.
That's a huge problem. Here's the deal. This happens all the time. This is real, right? And so this right here, this is an integrity problem. This is an integrity problem. You got me? And that's why statistically you got to do this the right way. Jade.
Also, kind of like what I think Chris was saying too. Like he went to a mall, which is where kind of people like sometimes like hang out. So you're already not like you're not these are not like super intelligent people. I would say like all of them. Are, no, like, all of them are not. No, I'm not saying they're dumb. But all of them are not as all of them are not as well educated. No, wait, listen. All of them are not as well educated.
You realize I go to the mall every week.
I'm just saying. No, what I'm saying is like, if someone approached me and asked me like, "How's the president doing?" I could give like a very brief like opinion, but I wouldn't really know because I don't really keep up with like all the shut up. Because I don't keep up with like all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
100%. There's a specific type of people. Lindsay, go ahead.
Increased bias
Or if you go to like a mall in Chicago.
Yeah, convenience sample. Okay, so here we go. Hey, this is great conversation. I have right now 10 minutes. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go as quickly as we can through these next 3 situations. There's 3 definitions that we're going to pull out of it. There's a lot wrong with each of these 3 that you're going to see, but there's 3 specific words I just want you to have in your mind in case, I'll tell you, they'll be on your quiz. And so I want to make sure I get through these 3 in the next 10 minutes, okay? So that way when you come in on Friday, you're ready to go, all right? You're ready to go. Say that again?
Say the 3 points on the test.
This right here?
The 3 points.
3 points, we'll do it on the test. We'll do it on the test. Cool. I'll put that down.
It's for the what? For real life examples?
Yeah, give me 3 real-life examples of situations where you'll find maybe a question or anything along those lines where it's a bad sample or it creates bias. Okay?
Question can't be a statement.
It can't be a statement because statement is bias. You're right. Like if I say something that is bias, we're talking statistical bias. It creates the same thing, right? But what makes this statistical bias is the way that it was conducted. The fact that he went up to people and looked and found the people that were approachable and then found that's a convenient sample that produces bias. Does that make sense? All right, here we go. Let's go through 3, okay? 3 situations. We're going to talk through this. Get these in your notes so you have them for the quiz, all right? Here we go. We're going to, ready? Fasten your seatbelts. We're going to get rolling. Here we go. Thank you, Jake. Thank you. All right, the mayor of Springfield is interested in finding out the average age of people in the city. He obtains a list of all the landline telephones in the city and then contacts a SRS of 300 people. He uses the data from the sample to estimate the ages of the average age. Here's what we're trying to find: the average age of all people in the city. Okay, Jack, are you with me here? All right. So what's the problem with this? Let's just talk through that real quick. Sarah?
Younger populations might not answer the landline when it rings.
Yes, that's right. Does everyone have a landline?
No.
No, we would say that landlines, not everyone, the problem, not everyone has a landline. Just kind of put that down. This is just a quick note. If I asked this on an FRQ, you would tell me the problem with it, maybe go in a little bit more detail. And really the next one would be the kind of the why behind it. And Sarah actually said both. Do you think this would over or underestimate the true mean age that would be there? Chloe, do you know what would you think? Great job. You would overestimate. And I think Sarah said it. Why is that? Yep, younger people don't use a landline, right? What would I say if we did cell phones instead of landlines? Would be the reverse. I would say it would at least, I think it would be better sample, but it wouldn't be all-inclusive. You'd be excluding some older people who don't have cell phones, right?
I don't answer my
Yeah,
phone.
maybe y'all, yeah, it probably would be better, definitely better. So overestimate. All right, here we go. Let's put this down.
It may still underestimate.
Would it?
Yes, because if I get a random thing about a survey, I'm not going to answer it.
Or if someone starts talking to me about a survey, I would just hang up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
We like to
honestly.
get
Oh,
information.
Hello?
So it was
This is actually really good. You went to my second definition, which is awesome. When you don't do that, when that happens and someone calls you and they're trying to get data for their company and you're like, heck to the no, I'm not doing this. At that point, that is called non-response bias. That's actually our second definition. We'll hit on that second. Okay? The first one, we call this where we don't hit everyone in our population. Again, I randomly did it, so that's good. But when I don't have everyone within my population represented, we call this undercoverage. Undercoverage. Okay? So if I randomly selected cars within the senior parking lot, I would probably have most everyone in that population, but there might be a couple people that don't have a car as a senior. Okay? In that instance, that was me. In that instance, I would say that would be undercoverage because there's some people not represented. Does that make sense? All right, question 2. Statement 2. I already told you what the second one was. Just put non-response here. Non-response, that's the second definition on this side. And by the way, these are all forms of bias. So if you're wondering, like, what is this? This is non-response bias, and the other one was undercoverage bias. All right? Question 2. The administration at a school wants to know the proportion of students that did all of their homework last night. They select an SRS of 100. Send an email to each of them asking if they did all of their homework last night. Of these 40 responses, 36 said they did do all their homework. All right, someone help me. That'd be JC, right?
No, nobody does
It'd be
homework at night.
37.
Yeah, it would be like
When do y'all do your homework?
During class.
During class?
I used to do that, but I can't do it.
What's wrong with this survey?
Not everyone.
Okay, not everyone responded. Good, John Michael.
They could be scared that this is like trying to catch them or something, so they're gonna be biased in their response.
It's really good. Yeah, it could be that, you know, maybe they think there's something underlying to where if they responded to it, could that affect the results? Maybe. Yeah, absolutely. So not everyone responded to the email. There's other confounding variables that John Michael is stating here. There's also this idea of who checks their email.
Yeah.
I know y'all don't, because I've sent some stuff to y'all. Good things. And some of you have checked it, and some of you have not. And so I know this. Okay? Or if you don't know, sometimes it's awkward to respond, which could be. What's that?
Yeah,
Group
It's true. I
meetings.
should. All right. So not everyone responded to the email, and then not everyone checks their email. Okay? Checks their email. So because of that, there is some non-response that's going on here. Okay? Do you think it would over or underestimate, and why? Overestimate? Okay, good. Yeah, I would say overestimate, and then why is that? What types of people check their email at night?
People that did their homework.
Yeah, and the people that responded probably that said they did are probably like happy that they did, so that they won like the exercise for it.
Yeah, it's really true. This is really
Because
true.
if you don't do all your homework, you're just probably not gonna respond like.
Yeah,
You're not gonna admit it.
absolutely. This came down here. All right, let's make sure we're almost done. I would say what John Michael said. Students might lie because administration is asking, or they may not respond if they didn't do it for fear, right? So that would be one, too. It would overestimate because who's going to respond to the email? Those that actually did it, or they're going to lie about it, right? So we're going to say that they could either lie, or those who did their homework would be the ones that respond. Who did their HW would be the ones to respond. All right? All right, one more and then we're done. We're DONing. We're good. All right, here we go. For those of you who don't understand text, that is done. All right, here we go. Number 3. Boy Scout Peter M. wants to know the proportion of people in his neighborhood who support the Boy Scouts. All right? As we went here, takes a random sample of 30 homes, visits them dressed in his uniform. Oh, man, what is wrong with it? How many of you, this drives me nuts. Every time in Kroger on Saturday, the Boy Scouts are out there with the, can you buy some peanuts? You know? And you know what I tell them? No, I'm not buying peanuts from them. Oh,
I'll buy them from Kroger.
Yeah.
Kroger.
Well,
Wow.
that was bad.
That'd be
So
really
mean.
That'd be, Sarah, have you thought about that?
When they ask you, you should be like, oh, thanks for the money. Walk back in and buy the cheaper program at one.
The overpriced Girl
That'd be
Scouts.
bad. That'd be bad.
$4 per box for the Girl Scouts?
Oh, those are worth it though. I'm not
Oh, yeah, Girl Scout cookies.
Samoas? Samoas?
Yeah.
No.
Thin Mints, yeah.
And the lemon.
Oh,
No.
freezing. Freezing. All right, here we go. Here we go. What's wrong with this survey? Lindsay.
It's like being biased because it's kind of skewing a positive response from the people since they know that he's a Boy Scout. They don't want to be mean to him.
Yeah, you said it. Great job. He is influencing responses that are there. He's influencing responses.
It's a convenience.
I would say it's definitely convenient. And depending on how they word the question, that could also change the response as well, right? So we would say that he's influencing responses. If that happens, we call this response bias. Just get that down. Response bias. Would that over or underestimate? Overestimate. Big time. Big time, big time. Cool. Did y'all get that? Did you get that today?
Yes.
We will tomorrow. It's quick. It's just the 3 definitions. Yes. Hey, Golden Nugget, if you want to get this down, it is right here. These are the Golden Nuggets. It's just the 3. 3 that we talked about. Okay?
My phone is already up.
3 that we talked about.
Oh, thank you. You just reminded me.
For the problem, like on the like the non-responsive bias, so what's do you like do
You know what I don't like?
people that don't respond
It's not that they don't count, they'll still count. It's just the study could have been conducted better. Does that make sense? So meaning my X bar, the big thing when we create bias, what happens? My true mu, my true mean, and my X bar, my sample is not going to come close to my true mean because there's bias that's there. So that bias creates a gap between mu and X bar. The further away, the higher the bias. So something that's like this, normally we have a little bias that's there. We're trying to minimize it as much as we can. And we minimize it by conducting the survey appropriately and also through the ways that we ask questions or who we sample and how we sample. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so another question is like, what's context of these stuff? So we just say like if you're studying for what stuff like that.
Yeah, is this on the homework? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I would say if they ask for context, just say when referring to our study of the Boy Scouts, and then continue with how would you attack that.
So those contexts are still necessary for this, right?
Correct. Just once in the FRQ is appropriate. That's good. Good.
Because there's a point.
So, do you know if I can just do it?
Waiting
for you.
At my house, or do I need to? A lot of things. I know at our house.
Bye, Coach Dane.
See you. See you.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, that's right. You get it to me by this week.
And then,
Is that fair?
yeah, that was.
See you
And then
ladies.
have a great day.
You too, Chloe. Have a great day too. See you, Brown. Jack.
I don't know what time. Because taking the test, like, isn't hard because of like rehearsal and everything, and I had to make up my psych test yesterday. So, could I have time after school today. I'm not full.
Is there a test makeup today? I don't think there's one after school. What we could do, I'm just thinking here. I've got a workout after school today with the coach. I wonder if someone would allow you to take it. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. If you want to come by today, there won't be any guarantee, but maybe before you head out, we'll see if someone can just watch, make sure that you're here and all that. And then we could try that right at the end of school. And then if nothing works out, then we'll have to try something different, maybe a different time.
Yeah.
Could you do Friday after school?
Yeah.
You want to do that instead? That way we know.
Yeah.
Let's do Friday after school because I'm good on that. I just know tonight because I'm going to one act.
Yeah.
Me too. And then,
You're coming tonight?
See you there, yeah, me and Jared.
Nice.
so we'll do all that. I think that will be good. Is that okay?
Yeah. And how long does it take? Because my call time is 4. So maybe I don't know. I can maybe talk to Miss Winks
If
about.
it's